What you're about to hear wasn't part of any tour, protocol, or diplomatic plan. Trump stepped past the palace barrier, looked a royal guard in the eye, and said, "You can't stop me, I'm the president." But the guard didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even blink. So why did Trump suddenly freeze and step back without another word? What did the guard say? 6 quiet words that ended the entire visit on the spot. This moment nearly broke centuries of royal protocol. And what happened next left the courtyard dead silent. Watch closely, because the guard never moves an inch. Now, before we reveal exactly what happened, first hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. There's a certain kind of morning at Buckingham Palace that tourists never forget, not because of anything dramatic, but because of the stillness. The kind of stillness that feels deliberate, ceremonial, like even the wind understands it's somewhere important. The sky is a pale English grey, stretched smooth over London like parchment. The flags above the palace stir just enough to make their colours ripple against the clouds. The cobblestones in the forecourt are still damp from an early drizzle, glistening faintly in the thin morning light. Visitors gather slowly around the black iron gates. Families, students, a few veterans in neatly pressed coats, children pressing their faces between the railings. Some lift their phones, others simply stare, as if the palace itself might exhale some old secret if they're quiet enough. Inside the courtyard, everything is precisely measured. The palace guards have already completed the early rotation. Their boots left no scuff, no hesitation. Now, stationing the eastern archway near the King's Gallery, a single guardsman stands resolute. Staff Sergeant Adrian Clark, Coldstream Guards, 38 years old, 16 years of service. His red tunic looks carved rather than worn. Seams straight, brass buttons aligned perfectly down the centre. White crossbelt pressed against his chest, tall, plain, black, bearskin hat shadowing his eyes. The wooden stock of his SA-80 ceremonial rifle rests against his gloved hand, motionless. To a tourist, he is a statue in scarlet fabric. To anyone who understands uniform, he is tension contained in muscle, stillness forged, not performed. Clark's breath is quiet, controlled, barely misting in the morning air. His eyes are fixed at the point just above the heads of the visitors, trained, unwavering. It's the same focus he learned years ago, standing behind a sandbag wall in Helmand Province, listening to distant artillery while waiting for evacuation orders that never came. That was a different uniform, dust instead of scarlet, body armour instead of polished buttons. But the stillness is the same. Today, his world is simpler. He stands guard over memory, over tradition, over a palace that has seen monarchs crowned and buried, wars declared and ended. His orders are clear: hold position, speak to no one, react only to threat or command. And no one, not even a head of state, can overrule the authority of his post without proper protocol. Across the forecourt, the palace staff begin their quiet routines. A steward checks the placement of velvet ropes marking the visitor path. A footman adjusts a polished brass rail. From inside, the faint echo of a chamberlain's footsteps disappears behind closed doors. The day is beginning exactly as it should: measured, ceremonial, unbroken. Then, from the street beyond the gates, comes a sound that does not belong. Engines, multiple, low, heavy, American. Heads turn. The wrought iron gates part, just enough to allow a sleek black SUV to glide through. Windows tinted, flags of the United States fluttering on the hood. Then another, and another. Diplomats, security, the unmistakable formation of a presidential motorcade. Tourists step back instinctively, cameras rising like a synchronized gesture. Some gasp, others whisper. No announcement was made. No fanfare preceded the arrival. The palace staff exchange subtle glances, the kind that say, "This was not on the schedule." But no one speaks out of turn. They simply step into their roles, posture tightening, eyes sharpening. Inside his bearskin shadow, Clark does not blink. The first SUV stops near the courtyard's edge. A door opens, and a familiar figure steps out. The door of the lead SUV swings open, and out steps Donald J. Trump. Even before his shoes touch the cobblestone, the atmosphere shifts. There's no formal announcement, no palace herald clearing the way, just the unmistakable presence of a man who's used to rooms rearranging themselves when he walks in. Trump takes a moment at the vehicle door, straightens his coat, adjusts the familiar red tie that always seems one gust of wind away from escaping, and looks up at the palace like he's sizing up a business acquisition rather than a seat of monarchy and memory. His expression isn't awe, it's appraisal. "Still doing the medieval cosplay thing, huh?" he mutters, not quietly, to one of his aides. A few tourists nearby hear it. A couple of them laugh nervously. The British liaison officer walking beside him does not. Two Secret Service agents step out behind him, scanning the courtyard. A press aide carries a leather folder. Another staffer checks his phone, already composing whatever diplomatic apology might be needed in the next few hours. The palace staff receive him with courteous restraint, no smiles, no visible irritation, only the kind of politeness sharpened by centuries of practice. A senior protocol officer steps forward, bowing her head slightly. "Mr. Trump, welcome to Buckingham Palace. If you'll follow me, we'll begin with the designated—" "I know my way," Trump interrupts, brushing past her with a dismissive wave of his hand. "I've been here, met the Queen. Tremendous woman. We got along great." The officer hesitates for a fraction of a second, then falls silent and follows. As he strides forward, his footsteps echo across the gravel and stone, a jarring contrast to the rhythmic, precise steps of the guards. He walks past the designated visitor path lined neatly with velvet ropes and brass stanchions. He looks at them briefly, then ignores them entirely. "Come on," he calls over his shoulder to his team. "We're not here to stand in lines like tourists." Phones rise again among the crowd. The soft murmuring grows. Some tourists smile, excited to film something unexpected. Others sense something is wrong, something that doesn't fit into the quiet choreography of this place. And then Trump sees him. At the far side of the courtyard, Staff Sergeant Adrian Clark stands motionless, framed between two stone arches, rifle resting properly at his shoulder. The bearskin hat casts a shadow across the top half of his face, leaving only his jaw visible, square, unshaken. Trump slows his pace slightly. "What's he guarding? A door?" he asks, pointing casually as though selecting a waiter in a hotel lobby. "Or is he just part of the set?" No one answers. The liaison remains perfectly still, hands clasped. Trump squints, intrigued now, not by protocol but by the attention the guard draws. "So he won't move? Not even if I walk right up to him?" "Sir, that area is restricted during active ceremonial duty," the liaison says carefully. "We kindly ask," but Trump is already stepping off the gravel path and onto the palace stone. Secret Service follows, uncertain but committed. Cameras follow too, always a step behind power. Across the courtyard, Staff Sergeant Clark doesn't adjust his rifle, doesn't turn his head, doesn't react. But something only another soldier would see, settles into his stance. A shift so minor you'd miss it if you blinked. A readiness. Because something in the air has changed. Trump keeps walking. And for the first time that morning, Buckingham Palace holds its breath. Trump's shoes strike the pale stone of the palace forecourt with a rhythm completely out of place. The official tour path, clearly marked by a velvet rope, brass stanchions, and polished signage, is no longer behind him, but off to his left. He has crossed it without a pause. Cameras are up. Tourists are no longer whispering. They're silent. A palace steward, young and terrified of being noticed, takes half a step forward. "Sir, this area isn't open to visitors." Trump waves a hand without looking at him. "Relax, I'm just saying hello." One of his aides, tensing, leans in and whispers urgently, "Sir, this part of the courtyard is classified as active ceremonial ground. The guards can't—" Trump doesn't slow down. "Can't? I'm the president. I don't hear can't." The staff around him exchange glances, some alarmed, some resigned. A Secret Service agent subtly steps between Trump and the palace red gravel edge, scanning Clark, the armed guard ahead. But Clark does not acknowledge him. Not Trump. Not anyone. His feet remain perfectly aligned, rifle upright, right hand steady, left arm behind his back. His eyes, hidden just under the edge of the tall black bearskin, never shift. His breathing is slow, measured. He does not see Trump as a threat. He sees him as something harder to deal with, a test. Trump stops 3 paces from the guard, close enough to feel his presence, but not close enough to be considered an act of aggression. Up close, Staff Sergeant Clark looks impossibly still. His scarlet tunic seems sculpted to his frame. The crisp white cross belt cuts diagonally across his chest. The polished black boots reflect the palace archway, the sky, even the faint shape of Trump standing before him. Trump smirks. "Does he blink?" he asks to no one in particular. A few Americans in the crowd chuckle. Trump steps 1 foot forward, just an inch closer. The crowd holding their breath feels it, the moment the invisible line of protocol is crossed. A palace official, voice soft but strained, speaks again. "Sir, please, he is on active duty. He cannot respond or move unless—" "Unless what?" Trump interrupts. "Unless the Queen herself tells him to." Silence. Only the wind and the clink of a distant flagpole chain answer him. Trump turns to his staff, amused. "You know, in America, soldiers salute their president. Generals do. Marines do. Navy, Air Force, Army, all of them. It's called respect." Then back to Clark. "So what about you? You going to show some respect? Or do you just stand there like a mannequin all day?" Clark doesn't move, not an inch. But his silence doesn't feel like ignorance. It feels like defiance, but controlled, disciplined, lawful defiance. A little boy near the barrier tugs on his father's sleeve. "Why doesn't he say anything?" The father answers softly, without taking his eyes off the scene. "Because he's not allowed to, lad. That's his duty." Trump's expression shifts. He steps even closer. "You can hear me, can't you? Good. Then hear this." He plants his foot firmly past the rope line. "I'm the president. You can't stop me." And just like that, the breach of protocol is complete. Not with shouting, not with force, but with 6 words. You can feel the courtyard change. Everyone waits to see if the man in scarlet, this silent statue of discipline, will finally move. But he doesn't. Not yet. To most of the crowd, Staff Sergeant Adrian Clark is just a uniform. Scarlet tunic, white belt, polished rifle, tall black bearskin hat. A ceremonial ornament in a centuries-old performance. But beneath that stillness, beneath the brass buttons and polished boots, is a man who learned silence long before he ever stood outside Buckingham Palace. He was 22 the first time he tasted dust and cordite in Helmand Province. Back then, the uniform wasn't ceremonial wool, but desert camouflage stained with sweat and sand. His rifle wasn't polished oak and steel. It was scratched composite, marked by nights spent lying in craters, listening to enemy fire snap through the dark. That was where Adrian learned the difference between panic and patience, between fear and stillness. There was a convoy once, 3 armoured vehicles pinned between a roadblock and a hillside. Civilians trapped inside. Incoming fire from somewhere unseen. He could have ducked, could have retreated behind a wall like instinct screamed at him to do, but he didn't. He stood in an open doorway of the lead vehicle, rifle trained outward, unblinking, while mothers and children scrambled behind him. He held that position until every last one was clear. Command didn't give him medals that meant applause. They gave him silence. A handwritten line, in a confidential commendation, displayed unbreakable composure under direct threat, refused to abandon civilians despite imminent risk. Years later, after his second deployment, he transferred to the household division, not because it was easier, but because he wanted to guard something that didn't disappear in smoke and sand. Something permanent, something worth standing still for. And now he stands here, same spine, same lungs, same man, only the uniform has changed. Trump doesn't know any of that. To him, Clark is just a part of the scenery. Unbelievable, Trump mutters, stepping closer, his voice half joking, half needling. Do they train you to ignore people, or is this just bad customer service? Clark doesn't move. But to someone who knows, someone who has stood guard themselves, they would see it. The barely perceptible tightening of the jaw, the subtle shift of a gloved finger against the rifle stock, not irritation, focus. A quiet reminder that in his world, discipline isn't performance, it's survival. Behind the rope line, a British veteran in a flat cap watches closely. You can tell by the way he stands, heels together, shoulders back, that he knows this stance himself. Not a statue, he murmurs to the schoolboy beside him. That man's seen more than that politician ever will. The boy's eyes widen. He looks at the guard differently now. Closer to the palace entrance, a junior palace steward whispers to a colleague, "Should we call Major Rutledge?" The colleague shakes her head. "Not yet, as long as no one touches the guard." Clark hears none of this. He hears the wind against the flag, the soft clink of his bayonet in its lug, the rhythmic beat of his heart, steady, unchanged. Trump makes one more step forward. One foot now shadows the toe of Clark's boot. "You can't stop me," he says again, louder. "I'm the president." The words drift across the courtyard, echoing off stone and silence. Clark doesn't blink, doesn't flinch. But in that silence, the air thickening, tourists frozen, there is no question anymore. This is no longer spectacle. This is a line being drawn. Trump is now close enough to see his own reflection in the polished brass buckle across Staff Sergeant Adrian Clark's chest. The distance between them isn't measured in feet anymore. It's measured in authority, pride, and the silence neither man seems willing to break first. "You hear me?" Trump says, tilting his head, voice loud enough for everyone in the courtyard to catch it. "I said, you can't stop me. I'm the President of the United States." His words ring out sharply against the palace stone, bouncing into the silence like a thrown pebble into still water. Clark remains motionless, not out of disrespect, but because centuries of law, duty and blood say he must. A palace liaison steps forward, nervous, hands clasped tightly. "Sir, please, he is on active ceremonial guard. He cannot acknowledge verbal orders from anyone outside the command structure of His Majesty's Household Division." Trump turns, eyes glinting. "I'm not giving him a suggestion. I'm giving him a command." A ripple of discomfort moves through the crowd. An American tourist, phone pointed upward, whispers, "Oh, this is about to go viral." But beside him, a British mother gently lowers her daughter's hand from the railing. "No," she says softly, "this isn't something you film." Trump turns back to the guard, smirk fading now into irritation. "You salute the president, don't you? That's basic military courtesy." Still nothing. "You're on duty?" Trump pushes. "Good. So I'm giving you an order. Step aside." The air shifts. Not because Clark moves, he doesn't, but because the crowd suddenly feels the weight of his stillness. A group of schoolchildren stop talking. A retired colonel standing near the edge of the forecourt lifts his chin ever so slightly, watching with a kind of grave understanding. Trump leans closer, voice lower, more pointed. "You're not ignoring me because you don't hear me. You're ignoring me because you think you don't have to listen. But I'm telling you—" He steps forward enough for the toe of his polished shoe to hover directly above the guard's boot. "You can't stop me." Silence. Complete. Dense. The kind that makes the air feel heavier. It's no longer a joke, not a photo op, not something his aides can laugh off. Even his Secret Service agents hesitate now. Their training taught them to protect him from danger, but not from discipline. Behind the rope line, someone whispers, "He's gone too far." Trump's jaw tightens. He lifts his chin. "Last chance, step aside. That's an order." Staff Sergeant Clark doesn't blink, doesn't breathe any louder, doesn't shift. But something changes, not in him, but around him. The crowd stops being entertained. They become witnesses. And for the first time, even Trump seems to realize he's not speaking to a performer, he's speaking to a wall of tradition that doesn't move for power, ego, or presidents. The courtyard has gone eerily silent. No coughing tourists, no clicking camera shutters, no passing footsteps of palace staff. Even the Union Jack above hardly flutters, as if the air itself has paused to listen. Trump stands less than a foot from Staff Sergeant Clark now, waiting for something, anything. A blink, a twitch, a sign that his words have landed. Nothing. Not a single muscle in Clark's jaw, not the slightest shake in his grip on the rifle, not even the faintest shift of his eyes. Just that relentless stare over the heads of the crowd, fixed on nothing and everything. The silence is no longer empty. It is declarative. It is louder than any argument could be. A young tourist lowers her phone slowly, the weight of the moment sinking in. "Mum, he's not moving." "No," her mother whispers back, eyes never leaving the guard, "because he's not here for him." Just behind the rope line, the old veteran in the flat cap nods faintly, as though he's seen this kind of defiance before, just not in marble halls, but in places where silence meant survival. Trump exhales sharply. "Oh, on," he scoffs, turning to the onlookers as if inviting them into the joke. "You all see this, right? He's just pretending to be a statue." Nobody laughs. He looks back at Clark, frustration biting through his tone now. "You think ignoring me makes you stronger? You think silence is power?" Again, nothing. The stillness becomes impossible to challenge without crossing into physicality. Trump takes another half step forward, closer than anyone is supposed to stand to a royal guard on ceremonial duty. His voice drops, lower, sharper, less performative and more personal. "You're not better than me. You're not above me." He leans in even closer. "You hear me? I'm a president. I don't take orders." His words are cut off by a sound, a single click, barely audible, but enough to ripple through the assembly. It is the guard's boot, just a millimeter, tightening its position against the stone. Not a shift of fear, but a shift of readiness. And for the first time, the crowd understands. This is not a refusal to obey. It is a refusal to be brought down from duty. A slow murmur spreads across the tourists. He's not ignoring him. He's protecting something. Trump straightens, slightly unsettled, but unwilling to show it. "So that's it," he says quietly. "You're just going to stand there?" Silence answers him, not weak, not passive, but like a wall that has stood longer than any presidency, any ego, any demand. Across the courtyard, an elderly woman bows her head slightly, whispering to herself, not a prayer, but something close to reverence. And yet, even here, the tension is unresolved. Trump's pride won't allow retreat. The guard's oath won't allow movement. Something has to break. And that is when the palace doors open. Bootsteps, measured, purposeful, not hurried. Authority has arrived. The doors beneath the stone arch of Buckingham Palace open, not with drama, but with precision. A gust of cooler air spills out from inside, carrying with it the faint scent of polished oak, brass, and something weightless but unmistakable. Authority. Every head in the courtyard turns. A woman steps into the light. Not a soldier, not palace security, but someone higher, someone whose presence doesn't need volume or weaponry to be obeyed. Major Eleanor Rutledge of the royal household, mid-40s, stern but calm, wearing the dark navy uniform of the Household Division's protocol office. Her hair is neatly pinned, her stride measured, her expression neither hostile nor amused. Just controlled. She doesn't rush. People who truly hold authority never do. Her polished shoes click softly against the stone as she walks, not toward Trump, but toward the line. The invisible line no one is allowed to cross. She stops exactly 1 pace from it. "Mr. Trump," she says, voice firm but impeccably polite, "this is an active ceremonial area. I must ask you to step back behind the boundary." Trump turns, half-smile returning. "I know who you are. Protocol officer, right? I've dealt with these before." "Yes, sir," she replies. "And I'm sure you're aware that these guards do not break formation regardless of rank, office, or title, unless commanded by their superior officer." His smirk widens. "Well, I'm a former president of the United States. I think that counts." "It does not outrank the crown," she says. No anger in her voice, just fact. Clear, unshaken, unapologetic. A few nearby tourists exchange looks. No one dares take a breath too loudly. Trump huffs quietly. "I'm just talking to him, trying to get some respect here." Major Rutledge lightly clasps her hands behind her back. "Respect, sir, is not demanded. It is recognized." She shifts her gaze just slightly toward Clark. Guardsman remains at post as ordered. He is not permitted to respond. Trump steps forward again, challenging. "And if I don't step back?" Rutledge doesn't flinch. "Then you will remain standing there, sir," she says calmly. "And he will remain standing here, and nothing else will happen." It's not a threat. It's worse. It's the truth. A truth older than any office or title. A quiet reminder that tradition does not bend. You do. Trump glances at Clark again, irritation simmering beneath his expression. "So that's the game. Nobody moves? Nobody speaks?" Major Rutledge tilts her head the slightest degree. One of those statements is still optional, sir." Trump looks confused. "What?" She nods once toward Clark. "He is permitted to break silence only if directly threatened, or if spoken to by authorized command." Trump scoffs. "So he can talk? He just won't." The Major's eyes don't leave his. "He can," she says softly. "He chooses not to." That line lands like a stone dropped in still water. No one moves. No one speaks. Even the breeze seems to pause. Finally, Trump exhales through his nose, shakes his head, and mutters, "Unbelievable." Then he takes one more step forward toward the guard. Major Rutledge's voice cuts through the air, quieter than before, but sharper. "Sir, that is enough." It's not a request. It's a boundary, not made of rope, not made of law, but made of centuries. The next moment will decide whether it holds. For a long, breathless moment, no one moves. Trump stands just inside the invisible boundary, closer to a royal guard on active duty than any civilian should ever be, chin lifted, defiance simmering just beneath the surface. Major Rutledge's eyes are fixed on him. Her voice, calm but edged with steel, still hangs in the air. "Sir, that is enough." But Trump doesn't step back. If anything, he steps closer. One foot now touches the stone directly in front of Staff Sergeant Clark's boot, close enough to feel the presence of the guard without touching him. Close enough that breaking it would no longer be verbal disrespect. It would be physical trespass. Trump leans in slightly, voice low enough that only the nearest cameras capture it clearly. "You can't stop me," he mutters. "I told you, I'm the president." Clark still doesn't blink. Doesn't so much as shift his weight. His breathing remains steady, hands rigid on the rifle stock, eyes locked forward, past Trump, past the cameras, fixed on a point he was trained to choose long before this morning began. But something changes. Not in his posture, not in his stance, in his presence. A veteran in the crowd, perhaps the only one who truly feels it, straightens his back unconsciously. He knows that aura, that razor-thin line between stillness and action, that discipline that doesn't need volume to be deadly serious. Then, without turning his head, without moving a muscle beyond what regulation allows, Staff Sergeant Adrian Clark speaks. His voice is quiet, not aggressive, not dramatic, but absolute. "This uniform does not answer to pride." The words drop into the silence with the weight of iron. No one breathes. No one moves. Trump's mouth opens slightly, caught between disbelief and something he hasn't felt in a long time. Not fear, not anger, something colder, recognition. Clark's voice continues, steady, measured, never breaking formation. This ground is served for the crown, not for applause, not for cameras, and not for those who believe power gives permission. The crowd is frozen, some with phones lowered now, almost ashamed to keep filming. Trump's eyes flicker, not with rage this time, but with a flicker of something else, something like being out of place. He glances around. No one is applauding him. No one is laughing. No one is even looking at him anymore. They're looking at the guardsman, the soldier who stood still, the soldier who spoke only when duty allowed him to. Major Rutledge's voice follows softly behind Clark's words, like a final seal. Mr. Trump, the visit is over. No anger, no accusations, just finality. Trump looks back at Clark one last time. The guard's face hasn't changed. His rifle hasn't moved. His eyes haven't shifted. And in that immovable silence, Trump understands. This isn't America. This isn't his stage. This is a place where power isn't taken. It's earned. He steps back. Only one step. But in that moment, it feels like a retreat. That single step Trump takes backward does more than create distance. It breaks the moment. A soundless shift travels through the courtyard, like pressure lifting before a storm breaks. The tension doesn't explode. It exhales. Trump's entourage, previously frozen in uneasy uncertainty, begins to move again. One aide reaches forward, whispering something urgent under his breath. A Secret Service agent subtly places himself between Trump and the guard, as though shielding him from a threat no one can see, but everyone can feel. Major Rutledge lowers her chin just slightly, the closest thing to a nod of acknowledgement. Not to Trump, to Clark. Trump starts to speak, a slight parting of the lips, a breath drawn like he might reclaim the moment. But what words could he place here? What command could undo what has just happened? Because no matter how powerful the man, no matter how loud his voice, there is no order in the world that can force dignity to kneel. So instead, he says nothing. His aide gently touches his arm. "Sir, the vehicles are ready." Trump doesn't answer. His jaw is tight, his eyes cast toward the gravel stones, anywhere but at the soldier who refused to move. He turns away. No waving. No final remark. No cameras called to follow. Just the quiet shuffle of polished shoes against stone as he walks back toward the motorcade. And for the first time since arriving, no one follows him with a phone. They watch him go. But their attention? It stays with Staff Sergeant Clark. The courtyard remains suspended in silence like a chapel after prayer. Major Rutledge steps forward, stopping just short of Clark's position. Her voice, low and respectful, carries only for him to hear. "Stand down, Sergeant. You've done enough." Clark gives the smallest nod allowed under regulation, his hands tightening once on the rifle before returning to rest. He doesn't look at Trump's departing convoy. He doesn't look at the tourists. He stands exactly as he has been trained to stand, unshaken, untouched, unmoved. The convoy vehicles roll forward softly, no fanfare, no triumphant music. As the last car passes through the gates, a woman near the rope line, she may be late 30s, tourist from abroad, lowers her phone completely. She looks at her young son beside her and whispers, "That is what respect looks like." Another voice, the older veteran who had spoken earlier, answers quietly, "No, that is what earned respect looks like." One by one, people begin to leave. Not chatting, not laughing, not even looking at their phones. They walk in silence, the kind that isn't empty, but full, the kind you only carry after witnessing something real. Inside the palace corridor, a senior steward radios the command office. Diplomatic visit concluded. There's a pause on the line before a soft reply comes through. Understood. Ensure the guard rotation proceeds as scheduled. Because here things continue. Tradition continues, even after storms. Especially after storms. Outside, Staff Sergeant Clark remains at his post until his exact minute of relief. When it comes, he does not look back. He passes through the palace archway and disappears into the stone shadows, leaving behind not a headline, not a spectacle, but a silence that says more than power ever could. Some lines are not crossed, some uniforms don't bow, and some men don't move, even when the world tells them to. Not a single camera flash, not a single cheer, just silence. And sometimes, silence says more than any speech ever could. But now I want to hear from you. If someone in power demanded you step aside, would you hold your ground like Sergeant Clark did? And do you think Trump truly understood the guard's silence, or just walked away because he had no choice? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. If this story made you see tradition, discipline, or respect in a new way, hit that like button. It truly helps more than you know. Make sure you're subscribed with the bell on so you never miss our daily Royal Guard stories. And before you go, don't scroll. Your next story is already on your screen right now. Tap it, and I'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Because here, tradition doesn't flinch, it stands.